What if everything you've been taught about prayer, healing, and spiritual power has been keeping you from the very transformation you seek? Think about it for a moment. You pray for healing, but the illness persists. You ask for abundance, but lack continues to define your reality. You call out to God for help, yet the circumstances remain unchanged. Has this ever happened to you? You pour your heart into prayer, you follow every spiritual practice, you do everything you've been taught to do, and still, nothing shifts. It's as if there's an invisible barrier between you and the breakthrough you desperately need. What if I told you that this barrier isn't out there in the universe, but in the very way you've been approaching the divine? What if the answer you've been searching for isn't hidden in complex rituals or ancient secrets, but in two simple words that you speak every single day without realizing their power? These two words have the potential to completely transform your health, your relationships, your abundance, and every aspect of your existence. Yet most people go their entire lives never understanding their true significance. When Jesus declared, "I am the way, the truth, and the life," he wasn't making a poetic statement or claiming exclusive divinity for himself alone. He was demonstrating a universal principle, a spiritual law that operates with the same precision whether you're aware of it or not. This same consciousness allowed him to heal the sick, walk on water, and raise the dead. But here's what might surprise you. He never intended for these demonstrations to prove he was different from you. He was showing you what becomes possible when you truly understand what "I am" means. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover will challenge everything you thought you knew about prayer, healing, and your relationship with the divine. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Now, here's the revelation that changes everything. Every time you say, "I am tired, I am broke, I am sick, or I am afraid," you're not just describing your current state. You're doing something far more powerful and potentially dangerous. You're making a declaration about your very identity, attaching the infinite to the finite, claiming that the divine presence within you is somehow limited by temporary circumstances. Most spiritual teachings tell you to pray harder, to be more devoted, to reach higher, to touch God. But what if the entire premise is backwards? What if God isn't something distant that you need to reach, but the very essence of the I that you are right now? This isn't metaphorical, this isn't symbolic, this is the practical, demonstrable truth that can shift your entire reality. The moment you allow "I am" to flow through your entire being, not as a concept you understand intellectually, but as a living consciousness you embody, everything begins to change. But the transformation doesn't happen the way you might expect. The truth is, you've been searching in the wrong direction your entire life. And that's not your fault. It's what we've all been taught. We've been conditioned to believe that spiritual power exists somewhere out there, beyond us, above us, separate from us. We've been told to reach higher, pray harder, be more worthy. We've been taught that God is a distant force we must somehow convince to notice us, to help us, to grant our requests. But this entire framework is built on a fundamental misunderstanding that has kept humanity trapped in suffering for centuries. Here's the hidden truth that changes everything. God is not something you need to reach for, because God is the very I that you are right now. Not the I of your personality, not the I of your history or your circumstances, but the pure consciousness that exists before any thought, before any condition, before any label you've ever attached to yourself. This isn't philosophy. This is the practical reality that determines whether you experience limitation or freedom, sickness or health, lack or abundance. Think about the profound impact of this revelation. Every problem you face, every struggle that keeps repeating in your life, exists for one reason. You've forgotten your true identity. You've been identifying yourself with the temporary, with the changeable, with the conditions of your life, rather than with the eternal presence that you actually are. You look in the mirror and see a person with problems. You check your bank account and see someone who lacks. You feel pain in your body and declare yourself sick. But none of these things are the real you. They're just experiences passing through the consciousness that you are. If this resonates with you, subscribe to join a community exploring spiritual truths that actually transform lives, not just sound good in theory. The transformation that happens when you grasp this truth isn't about changing your circumstances first. It's about changing the lens through which you see everything. It's a complete mindset shift that operates from the inside out, not the outside in. For generations, we've had it backwards. We've been trying to fix the external, hoping it would change how we feel internally. But the real journey moves in the opposite direction. When you recognize what you truly are, the external begins to align with that inner knowing without force, without struggle, without the constant battle you've been fighting. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding this intellectually won't change your life. You need to see how this false identity, this case of mistaken self, has been operating behind the scenes in every area of your experience. Every time you say "I am," followed by anything limited, you're making a declaration that contradicts your true nature. You're taking the infinite and claiming it's finite. You're taking the eternal and saying it's temporary. You're taking perfection itself and declaring it broken. If this perspective is beginning to shift something inside you, write in the comments, "I am ready to remember." This realization completely transforms how you approach every need, every desire, every challenge in your life. You stop begging. You stop pleading. You stop hoping that somehow your words will reach a distant deity who might, if you're lucky, decide to help you. That entire paradigm collapses when you understand that the divine presence isn't somewhere else listening to your requests. The divine presence is the very consciousness reading these words right now, breathing through your body, animating your existence. Think about what this means for your daily experience. When you need healing, you're not calling out to something separate from you, hoping it will intervene. When you need provision, you're not trying to convince a faraway power to send resources your way. The source of everything you could ever need is already the foundation of your being. It's not absent, it's not withholding, it's simply waiting for you to stop identifying with lack and remember what you truly are. But here's where most people unknowingly sabotage themselves, where the hidden truth about language and identity becomes critically important to your transformation. Every single day, probably multiple times throughout the day, you make declarations that directly contradict your true nature. You do it so automatically, so unconsciously, that you don't even realize the impact these words are having on your reality. Listen to how casually we speak. "I am so tired. I am broke right now. I am sick of this situation. I am afraid of what might happen." Each of these statements feels innocent, just describing your current experience. But behind the scenes, something far more powerful is occurring. You're not just describing a temporary condition. You're claiming it as your identity. You're taking the infinite "I am" that you truly are and attaching it to limitation, to lack, to fear, to weakness. The words that follow "I am" are never neutral. They're either declarations of truth or declarations of illusion. When you say "I am tired," you're not speaking as your temporary human personality experiencing fatigue. You're speaking as consciousness itself, and you're claiming that consciousness can be tired. When you say "I am broke," you're claiming that the infinite source of all abundance is somehow lacking. Can you see the contradiction? Can you feel how this misuse of identity creates and reinforces the very conditions you're trying to escape? This isn't about positive thinking or pretending conditions don't exist. It's about understanding the power of these two words and the decisions you make every time you use them. Your entire journey toward freedom depends on becoming aware of how you're using I am throughout your day. Are you identifying with the eternal or with the temporary? Are you speaking from truth or from appearance? Are you claiming your divine nature, or are you reinforcing the false self that believes it's separate, limited, and vulnerable? Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's a specific pattern that Jesus demonstrated, a way of using I am that unlocked miraculous transformation in every situation he faced. And when you begin to apply this same principle, your relationship with reality itself begins to shift in ways that might seem impossible from where you're standing right now. If you're starting to recognize how you've been using these words unconsciously, drop a comment saying, "I choose my words carefully now." Jesus understood something that most spiritual seekers miss completely. He never once used I am to identify with limitation. Not once. Go through every recorded statement he made, and you'll find a consistent pattern that reveals the secret behind his extraordinary demonstrations of power. When he stood before illness, he didn't say, "I am concerned about this sickness." When he faced lack, he didn't declare, "I am worried about how to feed these people." When he encountered death itself, he didn't claim, "I am afraid of what might happen here." Instead, every single time he used those two powerful words, he was identifying with what is eternally true. I am the resurrection and the life. I am the light of the world. I am the way, the truth, and the life. These weren't metaphors. These weren't poetic expressions of spiritual aspiration. He was making precise declarations about his true identity, aligning his consciousness with the unchanging reality of his being, rather than with the temporary appearances surrounding him. And this is where the hidden truth about manifestation and transformation becomes crystal clear. He wasn't claiming something special just for himself, something that separated him from the rest of humanity. He was demonstrating a universal principle that operates whether you're aware of it or not. When you attach I am to eternal truth, reality reorganizes itself around that consciousness. When you attach I am to temporary limitation, you lock that limitation into your experience. This is how your words create your reality. Not through magical thinking or wishful manifestation, but through the fundamental nature of consciousness itself. Every time you say, "I am failing," you're not just describing a current situation. You're making a creative declaration that reinforces failure as part of your identity. Every time you claim, "I am not good enough," you're identifying the infinite presence that you truly are, with unworthiness and inadequacy. The impact of these statements goes far beyond simple description. They become the lens through which you perceive everything, the filter that determines what possibilities you can even see. Behind the scenes of your visible reality, there's a constant process of creation happening through the declarations you make about yourself. Your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between what's eternally true and what's temporarily appearing. It takes whatever follows I am as an instruction, as a definition of identity that must be maintained and proven true through your experience. This is why people who constantly say, "I am unlucky," seem to experience one unfortunate event after another. This is why those who declare, "I am always sick," rarely experience sustained health. They're not cursed, they're simply creating from the wrong level of consciousness. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding the principle intellectually won't change anything until you see how it's been operating in your own life, creating the patterns and circumstances you've been experiencing, and what specific decisions you need to make right now to shift from creating limitation to creating freedom. If this revelation about the creative power of your words is landing differently than anything you've heard before, write in the comments, "My words shape my world." Here's what might completely shift your entire spiritual journey. You're not trying to become something you're not already. You're not working toward some future enlightenment. You're not climbing a ladder to reach a higher version of yourself. The I am that you truly are isn't a destination. It's not something you develop through years of meditation, discipline, or spiritual practices. It already exists, fully formed, perfectly whole, right now in this exact moment. This revelation turns everything upside down. Your entire approach has probably been focused on becoming more spiritual, more worthy, more awakened. But that's the trap. That's the hidden obstacle that keeps people searching for decades without ever finding what they're looking for. The truth is, you don't become I am. You simply stop identifying with what you are not. You stop claiming that you are your history, your mistakes, your circumstances, your body, your bank account, your relationships. You recognize that all of those things are experiences passing through consciousness, but they are not the consciousness itself. Think about the impact this has on how you approach healing. Right now, if you're dealing with any kind of physical challenge, your automatic response is probably, I am sick and I need healing. That statement feels natural, honest, even necessary. But the moment you claim, I am sick, you've made a fundamental error in identity. You've attached the infinite, eternal, perfect presence that you truly are to a temporary condition appearing in matter. You've forgotten that the I speaking those words cannot be sick, because that I is pure spirit, infinite life itself. The body may be showing symptoms, absolutely, but that's not you. That's not the I am. Those symptoms are appearing in form, in matter, in the realm of effects. But the real you, the consciousness observing those symptoms, the awareness that exists before and beyond any physical sensation, that I was never sick, can never be sick, will never be sick. Healing, then, isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about recognizing what was never broken in the first place. This same principle operates behind the scenes in every area of your life where you're experiencing limitation. When you say, I am broke, you're attaching your true identity to a temporary financial situation. When you say, I am alone, you're claiming that the infinite presence expressing as you is somehow isolated. When you say, I am not enough, you're denying the completeness that already exists as your essential nature. If this message shifted something in how you see yourself or your reality, hit that like button. It helps this reach others who need to hear it. The transformation happens not through changing conditions, but through changing the identity you're claiming. Conditions are effects. They appear in response to consciousness. When you know yourself as I am, when you rest in that awareness without attaching it to limitation, conditions have no choice but to align with that truth. Not because you're forcing them, not because you're manifesting them through effort, but because that's simply how reality works. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there are real stories of people who applied this understanding and experienced results that seem impossible from a conventional perspective, demonstrations that prove this isn't just philosophy, but practical truth that reshapes physical reality when you truly embody it. If you're beginning to see the difference between describing conditions and claiming them as your identity, write in the comments, I am not my circumstances. Margaret had been living with chronic pain for 7 years. 7 years of doctor visits, treatments, medications, therapies. No one could find a medical explanation. No treatment brought any lasting relief. The pain had become her constant companion, her identity, the first thing she thought about every morning and the last thing on her mind every night. She had tried everything conventional medicine offered and was beginning to explore spiritual approaches when she encountered a teacher who asked her one simple question that changed everything. Who is the I that says, I am in pain? That question stopped her completely. She sat there in silence for nearly 20 minutes, not because she didn't want to answer, but because something was shifting behind the scenes of her awareness. For the first time in 7 years, she wasn't focused on the pain itself. She was examining who was claiming the pain, who was identifying with it, who was saying, "I am suffering." In that silence, a revelation emerged. She had been attaching her true self, the infinite consciousness that she actually was, to a body and its sensations. The pain existed, yes, but it didn't belong to the I that she truly was. It belonged to a false sense of identity, a mistaken understanding of what she was. The real I, the consciousness observing the pain, had never been in pain. It couldn't be. Within 3 weeks, something remarkable happened. The pain began to diminish. Within 2 months, it was completely gone. Not because she fought it, not because she found the right treatment, but because she stopped claiming it as her identity. Then there's Robert, whose story reveals how this same principle transforms every area of life where we're experiencing lack or failure. His business was collapsing. Every morning he'd wake up with the same thoughts running through his mind like a toxic mantra. I am failing. I am losing everything. I am not capable of making this work. Those declarations felt honest, realistic, just describing the situation as it was. But they were doing something far more powerful and destructive than he realized. They were defining his identity through limitation, through lack, through failure. When he heard this teaching about I am, the impact was immediate, even though the transformation took time. He realized he'd been using the most powerful words in existence to reinforce the very conditions he was trying to escape. So he made a decision. Every single morning, before looking at numbers, before checking emails, before allowing the circumstances to dictate his consciousness, he would sit quietly and recognize the truth. I am is the abundance of God. I am is infinite resource. I am is divine intelligence expressing. The journey wasn't instant. It took 4 months. But during that time, something shifted in how he perceived his business, his challenges, his possibilities. Ideas that had been invisible suddenly became clear. Connections appeared that opened doors he didn't even know existed. Opportunities emerged that seemed to come from nowhere. His business didn't just survive. It evolved into something completely different, something aligned with who he truly was, rather than who he thought he had to be. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because these stories reveal a specific technique you can use in moments of crisis or challenge, a way of interrupting the false identity and creating space for truth to emerge that works regardless of what situation you're facing right now. If these stories are resonating with your own journey or struggles, share in the comments. I recognize this pattern in my life. There's a specific moment that determines whether you break through or break down, whether you transform the situation or get consumed by it. It's the moment when fear grips your chest, when pain overwhelms your awareness, when circumstances appear so impossible that panic starts flooding through your system. In that critical moment, most people react immediately. They fight, they flee, they collapse into despair, they scramble for solutions. But there's another option, a decision that changes everything. It's called the pause. You stop completely. You don't react to the fear. You don't try to solve the problem. You don't panic or plan or strategize. You simply pause, and in that pause, you return to the one truth that never changes. I am. This simple act interrupts the false identity that's been running the show, the personality that believes it's separate and vulnerable and overwhelmed. The pause creates space, and in that space, truth has room to emerge. In that moment of stillness, You ask yourself one question: what is the truth of my being right now? Not what appears to be true, not what circumstances are screaming at you, but what is eternally, unchangeably true. And the answer is always the same. I am is the presence of God, untouched by any condition, whole, supplied, safe, complete. Not because circumstances prove it, not because you can see evidence of it, but because this is the fundamental nature of infinite being expressing as you. The impact of this practice goes far beyond crisis management. When you begin using the pause regularly, you start to see something remarkable happening behind the scenes of your relationships. Every conflict, every judgment, every moment of hurt or anger or resentment exists because you're operating from what we might call personal sense, the belief that you and others are separate individuals with separate interests, separate identities, separate worth. But when you pause and return to I am consciousness, a profound shift occurs. You recognize that the person standing in front of you, the person who hurt you or disappointed you or failed to meet your expectations, their true identity is also I am. The same infinite presence expressing in different form. They've forgotten who they are, just as you've forgotten at times. They're acting from a false sense of self, from fear or pain or confusion. But beneath all of that, the truth remains unchanged. This understanding doesn't mean tolerating harmful behavior or abandoning appropriate boundaries. It means seeing beyond the appearance to the reality underneath. It means recognizing that when someone acts from anger or greed or cruelty, they're not expressing their true nature. They're operating from amnesia, from a case of mistaken identity that has them convinced they're separate and threatened and need to protect themselves. The same transformation happens in how you relate to yourself. When you fail, when you make mistakes, when you fall short of your own ideals, notice how quickly judgment arises, that harsh inner voice that says, you're not enough, you're failing, you're broken. But that voice is personal sense attacking personal sense. One false identity judging another false identity. Neither is true. The that you truly are never failed, because I am is already perfect, already whole, already complete. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's a hidden truth about abundance and supply that most people never discover. A revelation about where your resources actually come from that completely eliminates financial fear and opens channels of provision you never knew existed. If this understanding about seeing beyond appearances in yourself and others is beginning to shift your perspective, write in the comments, I see the truth beneath the surface. Most people live in perpetual financial anxiety because they've been taught to believe that their supply comes from outside themselves. Your job is your source. Your clients are your source. Your investments are your source. This creates constant fear because what if the job ends? What if the clients leave? What if the market crashes? You're forever at the mercy of external circumstances, always vulnerable, always one decision or one economic shift away from disaster. But here's the hidden truth that transforms your entire relationship with abundance. I am is infinite supply. Not your employer, not your business, not your portfolio. The source is never outside you. It never has been. Every channel through which money flows into your experience is just that, a channel, not the source itself. The source is the infinite consciousness expressing as you, and that source never diminishes, never runs dry, never depends on external conditions. Think about the profound impact of this revelation. When you recognize that I am is your source, you stop living from fear and scarcity. Yes, one stream of income might dry up, but three others you never anticipated suddenly open. One opportunity closes, but two better aligned possibilities appear. The channels change constantly, but the source remains eternally full, eternally flowing, eternally available. You're not dependent on any person, any company, any economic condition because your supply comes from consciousness itself, expressing in material form. This isn't theory. When you begin living from this awareness, something remarkable happens behind the scenes of your financial reality. Opportunities appear through synchronistic connections you couldn't have manufactured. Ideas emerge that you would never have thought of through logical planning. Resources flow from unexpected directions that have nothing to do with your usual channels. Why? Because you've stopped blocking the natural abundance of I am with the belief that you're a separate person dependent on external sources. The key is recognizing this truth not just intellectually, but as a lived reality throughout your day. When you pay bills, you're not giving away limited resources. You're allowing I am, infinite supply, to flow through you into circulation. When you receive money, you're not getting something from someone else. You're witnessing I am making itself visible through that particular channel. When you work, you're not trading time for money. You're allowing infinite intelligence to express value through your unique form. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding all of this means nothing if it remains intellectual knowledge. The real transformation happens when I am consciousness becomes your constant state of being, not something you practice during meditation or remember during crisis, but the foundation of how you move through every single moment of your existence. This is where theory becomes reality, where knowledge becomes power, where understanding becomes demonstration. Living as I am means you wake up each morning not as a person facing another day of challenges, but as infinite consciousness expressing in this particular form. You don't walk through your day trying to be spiritual. You recognize you are spirit appearing as person, the wave that knows itself as the ocean, the ray that knows itself as the sun. Every activity becomes an expression of the divine, not because you're making it sacred, but because you're recognizing what it already is. If this vision of living from I am consciousness, every moment is beginning to feel possible rather than impossible, share in the comments, I am ready to live this truth. So here's what I want you to understand as you move forward from this moment. Everything we've explored today, every revelation about I am consciousness, every story of transformation, it all comes down to one simple decision you make right now. Will you continue identifying with the temporary, with the limited, with the false self that believes it's separate and vulnerable? Or will you pause, recognize the truth, and begin living from the infinite presence that you actually are? This isn't something you master overnight. It's a journey of remembering, of catching yourself in moments when you're about to claim limitation as identity, of returning again and again to the truth until it becomes more natural than the lie you've been living. But every time you choose truth over appearance, every time you recognize I am, instead of identifying with conditions, you're allowing transformation to happen, not through force, but through alignment with what already is. If you made it all the way here with me, if something in this message resonated with where you are on your journey, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment saying, "This message was meant for me, so I know you were here, so I know this landed with someone who needed to hear it today." Your presence matters, and knowing who's walking this path alongside me makes creating this content even more meaningful. And if you found value in what we explored together, hitting that like button helps this message reach others who might be searching for exactly this understanding right now. It's a simple way to extend what you've received here to someone else who's ready for it. I create videos like this regularly, diving deep into spiritual truths that actually work in practical life, not just philosophy, but principles you can apply and see real results. If that speaks to you, if you want more of this kind of content, go ahead and subscribe. You'll be joining a community of people who are serious about transformation, who aren't satisfied with surface-level spirituality, who want the real truth even when it challenges everything they thought they knew. There's a video right here that takes this understanding even further, exploring how to apply I am consciousness to specific life challenges you might be facing right now. Click and continue with me over there. Let's keep this journey going together.